call to order this joint planned development workshop between the City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission for March 15th at 6 o'clock p.m. With that, we're going to do a roll call. We've got all members of the City Council present, and I haven't seen online if Councilmember Cam Carr, is he online? Okay, I see Lawrence shaking yes. So we have all members of the City Council present. So I can certify that quorum. Madam Chairwoman, would you certify roll call for the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Mayor, we do have a quorum of the Planning and Zoning Commissioner. We're missing Jennifer Hendricks, but she's traveling in a blizzard trying to get here. I'm not positive she's going to make it, but we do have a quorum.
But we do have a quorum. All right. So with that, we'll move to item number 4, citizen comments. Josh or Joe, we had a citizen, Jay Daggett, that had said he wanted to speak. Do we know if he's online? Okay. Is it pertaining to the workshop, sir? We don't have a council meeting scheduled for tonight. We have council meetings next week. Yeah. So seeing nothing, no one moving forward on Mr. Daggett. We'll just get to him in the next meeting as we get to it. Purpose of our workshop, I'll just read it in. Number 1, input and discussion request by Sullivan Brothers Builders, requested by Scott Burrer, applicant on behalf of T&amp Alexander Family Limited Partnership, owner, for a joint workshop regarding a proposed planned development for a residential development consisting of approximately 79 narrow lot detached single-family homes on approximately 7.4 acres of land, currently zoned Old Town Site Mixed Use District and generally located south of Broadway Street, west of South Galveston Avenue, and east of South Houston Avenue. With that, I want to turn it over. Which staff person is going to give us a staff report?
Thank you, Mayor Cole. Hi, I'm Martin Briggs. I'm the planning manager. I'll be doing the introductions for these workshops, and then I'll introduce the staff afterwards. Josh, if you can throw me the presenter. Thank you, sir.
Martin, before you begin, Martin, before you begin on that, just for the purposes of the record, Mr. Fortes, I know that your camera's not on and I can't see you. Did you file your disclosure? Did you send that to somebody on this one? He may have already stepped off because I believe he had a conflict of interest on this one. And for the purposes of the record, I just wanted to make sure that was in the minutes so that nobody confuses it and suggests that he did something inappropriate. But it sounds like he's not listening and the camera's off and he's not participating. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. So for each of these workshops that we have on for discussion tonight, we'll have a call to order followed by a staff report. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to present their case, followed by council, commission, and staff discussion, and then an adjournment to each item. On our agenda tonight are 2 new planned developments to discuss. The first in the Old Town District, and the second in the Pearland Town Center. And with that, I will turn it over to Mohammed Barima, our city planner, or our senior planner, to discuss this new proposal. Take it away, Mohammed.
Thank you, Martin. Y'all hear me? Good. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. This item tonight, the purpose of this workshop is really to discuss and receive feedback regarding this proposed plan development for a residential development consisting of approximately 79 detached narrow single family lots within the Old town site mixed use district. The property is located on multiple tracts and totaling approximately 7.4 acres of land. If you go to the next slide, Martin, this is Exhibit A, and it shows the location of the subject parcels. As you can see, there are at least 5 or 6 parcels located generally south of Broadway Street, west of South Galveston Avenue, and east of South Houston Avenue. Next slide. This exhibit here reflects the configuration of the proposed narrow lots, mainly 2 types, 25-foot by 125-foot lots, which are reflected with the dark brown. And then you have 35-foot by 125 lots, and these are the beige lots. I want to make sure I'm correct. That is correct. So next slide, Martin. This is the proposed deviations from the zoning district. This is the existing regulations of the zoning district, and mainly because this proposed development, as mentioned, it's narrow lot product, cannot be fit within the existing zoning, which is the mixed use district of the Old Town Site district. They're requesting a number of deviations, and so the only way that this can be accomplished is through the creation of a plan development. And as you can see, they're requesting deviations from things like the lot width, setbacks, as well as the lot coverage. So an example, the minimum front yard is 20 feet based on the mixed use district. Right now, they're requesting a minimum of 10. The lot width is kind of the main one. It's the third line there. And currently, the mixed use district requires 50 feet for lot width. They're requesting a minimum of 25. They do have 2 types, 25 and 35. Also, lot coverage. Right now, the mixed use districts require a minimum of 50%, or actually maximum, I should say, of 50% lot coverage. They're requesting 75, up to 75. So these are kind of the general deviations they're looking for in this PD that they look to create. Mark, next slide. This exhibit C, kind of reflects the schematic plans for the different roadway sections that will be within the district. Next slide, Martin. These are kind of the floor plans for the homes that will be laid on those 2 main types of the lots. The one on the right is the 35 lot, and the one on the left is the one on the left is the 25. The one on the right is the 35. Next slide. These are renderings of some of the products that they have built within the region here. This is the bungalow series. Next slide, Martin. This is another product that they have built also, and this one is called the Southern Row Houses. Next slide. That's just kind of a street view, and it kind of shows how they intend to do the streetscape. Again, they are intending to create this plan development to accommodate this type of development as it currently stands. The mixed use district does not allow these narrow lots, and that's a really briefly. I'll keep it short and sweet. Martin, do you have any closing comments on this?
Thank you, Mohammed. So this is a builder that happens to build within the region. They have products in both Galveston and in Houston Heights, where these images are coming from. One thing that will need to take place should we get some positive feedback through this workshop process will be to pass a Unified Development Code amendment, which we'll be discussing later on tonight, to allow for smaller planned developments within just the Old Town District, because currently residential properties or residential developments for planned developments require a much larger size and for the lots all to be contiguous. And that's nearly impossible with current development within the Old Town site. So these are just some of the issues that we'll need to address if we wish to see this type of product be developed in our Old Town site. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mayor Cole, for the continuation of our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, for that. Thank you, Mohammed, for your presentation as well. I'd like to know if the applicant is in the audience or online. Okay. Be certainly opportunity for the applicant to make any comments or presentation as well. And for those in the audience, we'll say that as you move to the podium, it is okay once you're at the podium to remove your mask if you feel inclined to. That way we can make sure we get clear on your comments.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me? How do I get this up there? Does anyone know? You're on it?
They're working on it.
Well, to begin, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the time. My name is Scott Burrer. I'm representing Sullivan Brothers. Also here with us is Julie Glass with Sullivan Brothers, Ernesto Alfaro with LJA, and Paul Groman with Gromax. The company Sullivan Brothers is a family-owned business based out of Galveston, Texas. We've been in business over 20 years. And what we're going to show you tonight is our vision for what we think could occur at the Old Town site. We're going to show you some of the products that we have built within sub-markets, cities, areas that we think have very similar characteristics to what you all have here. And then we're going to turn it over to Ernesto to tell you how we think we need to execute on that vision should you be interested. Generally speaking, we focus on traditional neighborhood designs or traditional neighborhood developments. And what that means is that our neighborhoods, either through the development process or through the home building process, is a throwback to the turn of the century. It focuses on enhanced streetscape, enhanced pedestrian circulation, minimal vehicular circulation, and they tend to reside in areas that are slightly more urban than what you would traditionally see in a suburban development. So you may have heard of some of these places. Galveston, Texas has a incredible historic district with some really neat architecture, and many of those aspects are T&D. We developed a community, and I'll show you pictures of that here in a minute, that we took the T&D concept and made a very brand new community look historic in nature. The Houston Heights is most well known today. 20 plus years when we started it, that wasn't necessarily the case, but in that community, we took a traditional neighborhood product, what you'll see up here, and then just repurposed it within the existing construct of the infrastructure that existed since 1906. You all have the same characteristics. Y'all's founding fathers came into play in mid-1890s. Y'all beat the Heights. And so what we're looking to do is to bring that vision and put a Pearland spin on it with the product you're going to see tonight. So these are pictures of the Heights as well as Galveston, Texas. You're going to see architectural designs that talk about, that show front porches, that have a sidewalk that is not impeded by a car sitting in a driveway. You're going to notice that you don't see garages on the front. Our garages are in the rear. And so with that, it helps us for lack of a better description, provide a different control of vehicular circulation within an area. The picture here and below is near the new ExxonMobil campus. So this is an example of this product we have built in the Heights on lots that were planned in 1906. We took the same product, we created a community from the ground up to make it look like that. It's just a different streetscape. The elevations of the roofs are muted. You don't see these big 12 on 12 roof pitches. Nothing wrong with them. We build them too. That's not where our passion lies. You'll notice that we use architectural standards relative to ratios of your windows to your walls, relative to your column width and height. We build a different product, and that's okay. That's who we are. What we're proposing in your community, should you be interested, at the Old Town site, is two different products that we have currently, well, we've run out of lots currently, but we build in the Heights. One is called the Bungalow Series. It is a one-story product. Again, it's still featuring muted roof lines, architecturally heavy on the front, craftsman style, front porch, streetscape. That's what you see here. Second product type is a Southern Creole row house. So this house that you see currently sits on a 25 by 125 foot lot. That's the same lot your founders created at the Old Town site. And candidly, you guys are unique among the greater Houston area. Not everybody has these. Not everyone has not only the prior land planning, but also the infrastructure that could lend itself to this kind of development. And so, you know, there's countless places we could think of that I can't build that in. Here's another example of a streetscape. Those are 25-foot wide lots. If I didn't tell you the width, most people would not be able to tell me because, again, you're not staring at a garage door. This is a combination of where we're mixing the bungalow with a simple one-story craftsman next to a two-story Creole. This right here is our most recent project that we developed inside Houston Heights. We repurposed 2.5 old industrial warehouses and took them back to their original plan. What you'll notice is there's a few items at the bottom, if you can see. The wider roof lines are the bungalows, and as you head south, so in the truest sense, north on this picture truly is at the top of the page. As you head south, you'll see where the skinnier lots, quote unquote, come into play, which are the Southern Creole. You'll also notice that you're not seeing a bunch of cars sitting in the front of the main road. That's why we have alleys. And the alley is intended to, for lack of a better description, hide the cars. The goal of a T&D neighborhood, and the reason why it's successful within an existing community such as yours, is that it enhances the existing infrastructure and planning that was done prior to. And so by doing this, it should enhance walkability, not just for the homes, but the intent is to enhance the walkability and the streetscape for the broader good. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ernesto to talk about exactly what we think needs to be done in order to execute that vision.
Thanks, Scott. And I'm not going to go over everything that Mohammed talked about. He did a great job of really summarizing what we've got going on here at the Old Town site. But I will point out a couple of different things. We have 3 different parcel areas indicated in the red: A1, B1, and C1. Those are the subject tracks for us. You can see that all of those have the 25 by 125 lotting already with the alleyway separation. You can see that in some cases, some structures have kind of ignored the way that is. That building's been in place since 1993, so you know it's just kind of been the way that development occurred here at this site. The only thing I want to point out in this schematic plan that we're showing you here is that the reason that we have the 2 products split into units of 3 or 2s and things like that is it creates a sense of diversity on the streetscape. So as you're looking at it, you don't get this homogeneous, continuous cookie cutter experience. You get an undulation effect, right? That's kind of the important thing. The other thing I want to point out on this drawing is the little section lines here where it says AA, BB, CC, DD, and so on. just want to point that out. Keep that in mind when we talk about the sections. It'll make a little bit more sense. These are typical street conditions, because the point of what we're trying to do is we understand the intent of the ordinance. We don't want to get in the way of that. What we want to do is enhance the streetscape experience, enhance the walkability, as Scott explained. Really, the idea behind traditional neighborhood design is to improve the pedestrian experience above all else. And because this is a historic core of the city, we want to restore that. Okay? So here in Plan A, the critical things here in these little sections is the fact that we have a 5-foot sidewalk, which is very normal, very ample, sufficient, and then also a 5-foot strip of landscape. And that's where our street trees would go and other vegetation. And then the other critical component is the 8-foot parking lane. So you go sidewalk, buffer, and parking lane, and then your travel lane. The travel lane will, depending on the width of the street, that's what varies. In most cases, it's going to be a 12-foot travel lane, more or less. In section BB, you'll notice that we're not showing a parking lane. That's East Pear Street. We're leaving that alone, except for the fact that to again, introduce the sidewalk and the street trees to improve that feeling of the street and improve the pedestrian experience at that location. But my favorite section by far is section DD, where we have South Grand Boulevard, where we have that really great median, vegetated, planted median. It's not always like that, but at this particular location, it has that wonderful aspect to it. And so at this location, the travel lane gets a little bit wider. The parking lane remains at 8 feet. Everything else, all the other elements are still the same. Now, the point of doing this and the point of having the parking lane with those, I'd like to point out, bump outs for street trees, is it creates an undulating effect on the trees themselves. So it's not just a row of trees marching down, but a slight wave of the trees as you're walking along. And now what that does is 2 effects. One, it improves the streetscape experience, as we've been talking about, but it also helps to ease the speed with which traffic flows along the street. Because the narrower that streets become, the slower people will drive. So there's a double effect that happens here as well. Just to recap what Mohammed said, and I want to point out the specific elements: the 10-foot building line, the front porch elements. Both of the products, the 25 and the 35s, have that front porch element. The detached garage, that's alley served, with a courtyard in between that separates the garage from the main house. So all 4 of those elements are present in both of these designs. And then just to kind of summarize here with these existing versus proposed regulations, and not to recap what Mohammed said, but also to allow for you to consider 2 additional things. One, to make the alleys one-way, which would improve congestion or the potential for any kind of conflict that might happen. It'll just make everything much easier if those alleys are one-way. And also to allow for parallel parking. Now here we're talking about angled parking. Sometimes that on South Grand Boulevard, for example, just to the north of the site, that kind of thing happens. But what we're advocating for here is simply to have the parallel on-street parking.
I'll finish it up with this. I mentioned you all have a very unique opportunity. Not everybody has this. I'm not going to name the other cities and towns in the area. Well, we've had success with this exact product in the Heights and the Woodlands and Galveston. And if you think that that's the kind of place that concept might work within your market, our ask to you all would be, if it's positive and the answer is yes, give us direction on how best to proceed so we can work with staff to try to execute. The one caveat, the one challenge that someone in my position always has is time. And I also recognize, appreciate, and respect y'all's responsibility relative to your UDC and your code and your P&Z and all. So our ask is, if you'll give us direction, and if it's positive, we'll go to work. We'd love to see the product. We think it would be a tremendous success here. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, does that complete the applicant's presentation?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, you probably ought to stay up because there'll probably be some questions to you rather than getting up and down. I know there will also be some questions of staff. Madam Chairwoman, I'm going to kick this to the Planning and Zoning Commission first to get some input, discussion, questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Earls, questions or comments?
No major comments. I'm originally from Galveston, Texas, so I'm partial to this style of architecture. So I like it.
Thank you. Commissioner Boswell?
My only comment would be I like what I've seen so far, so I am excited to see something like this within the city of Pearland and doing the necessary changes or amendments that are needed to make sure that this could happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Eisenberg?
Yeah, I love the product. I think the product is great. The only thing that I have concerns about is number one, what is the price point on the product?
Well, every home builder gets nervous, specifically breaking down price point, but our hope would be in the 300s, if possible.
Okay. It's like I said, I think it's a good fit. I think it's a good fit for a walkabout type community. The only concerns that I have is the 25-foot lots. I just can't wrap myself around those. Maybe it's my age. I'm not used to this. I reached out to some of our younger members of the city council to ask their perspective on it, because I know that it is a younger movement with these 45-foot home lots and all that type of stuff. I feel cramped in on a 70-foot lot, and I just can't wrap myself around that 25-foot lot. You're talking about building a structure that's probably around 18 feet wide and about 65 feet long or so. So I just, that's the only negative thing I have about it is just lot size. I think the product's great. I like the looks of it. I think the people over there in that area would not balk about having those type of structures in there. The only thing that I think they would balk on would be the lot size, and that's it. But I appreciate y'all, and I think it's a great product. I really like the looks of it.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Cade. I just had one question, if you don't mind. You mentioned the detached garage, and you said alleyway and courtyard between the house and the garage. The courtyard serves like as the backyard, so to speak.
Yes, ma'am. It's a nice, cute way of saying small backyard.
Okay. Thank
Not
you.
not everybody wants, in today's world, there's a lot of work from home. There's a lot of travel. And so my only suggestion on some of these items is not everybody wants a lot of maintenance. And so with that being said, we still have to provide something. We've done the detached product. Reverse that. We've done the attached product with this similar structure, and it simply doesn't sell as well. People still do want an outdoor space. And the folks that are likely going to live here are either looking for lower maintenance, or it's a first home and they're trying to get something that's still accommodative but doesn't really blow them out of the water. And they're also intending to use the outer line, the areas surrounding this area, the part to the north, for example. They're planning on using some of the existing facilities that are already in place, and that's why it's so critical to have, in our mind, that streetscape that is pedestrian friendly is critical. It's critical to everybody, not just ourselves, but it certainly would help our sales.
I've seen your facility, the one in Galveston, and it does look really nice. So I have a mental image of it, how it looks from the street. So I was just trying to get a mental image of this garage and courtyard alleyway area. But that's really my only question. Thank you so much.
The only thing I would add about the courtyard, it's not built with a hardscape. It's the rear of the garage and the rear of the home come together and form two sides of it. And then what we typically see people do is landscape around it. And if they want sort of a private oasis, they build it with landscaping and build a little garden in the back in between the house and the garage. And then that leaves the front porch area to be the really public living where you meet your neighbors and get to know everyone who's walking down the street.
Could you cover that area at all to make a covered way to the garage?
I have seen that done before.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't have any more questions. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Cade, does that complete the planning and zoning?
Yes, let me make sure I got everybody. Thank you.
Good deal. Now we'll open up to council for any comments or questions.
Why does number 7 go to number 1? I really don't have a problem with this. I like the way this is set up and what's it doing. And Mayor, you will know as well as I do that the number of years that we sat on council together and talked about we're going to have to change the density down in the old town site if we're going to be able to build out to do anything, and alleyways are not unusual in the old town site. We have them now in there, but I think, I kind of like the front porch on these things and the way it is. And that's the way I grew up, with the front porch and what have you. But I think, I've seen these similar to this in the Heights area. We had a house over there, or the wife's mother did, that we sold the property. But, there's 2 places on there now. But the thing about it, I've seen this develop, and I think it's, I think it's a good product. And it looks like it's a well-maintained type thing that you can do it. And, we spent a lot of funds here over the last couple of years or so on having a walkability here and being able to do that here on this side. So I think, that this is probably the product we've been looking for to be able to help redesignate this old town site and build it out the way that we talked about, and reversing the streets to one way and what have you. And I think, this is a way for us to come in and build this up on this side of town. So I don't have any problems with the product on it at all.
Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. Got a few questions. I'll start off with telling you I'm supportive of the project, so I'd like to see it move forward. I just have some maybe questions with respect to direction for y'all and staff. So just get my head wrapped around it. Are we talking about doing improvements to the existing roadway or just the streetscape?
As of right now, I think it would be just to the streetscape. I don't own the roads. You all do.
Yeah, but we can sometimes make you improve it.
Certainly an alleyway would need to be built. And one of our recommendations that Ernesto went through is we've seen success enhanced when we incorporate things like off-street parking. And if that's something that you all are willing to talk about within whatever construct of right-of-way you have, we're certainly more willing to have that conversation. But when it comes to those kind of things, we'd give a recommendation, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to you all and staff on what you want to do.
I mean, honestly, and not to hold you to this answer, but do you find these are the type of houses where people generally entertain, or do they usually keep to themselves and go other places?
No, they're entertaining.
Okay.
I mean, when I say entertaining, you're going to see folks sitting on that front porch like Julie described, talking with their neighbor. Those front porches, when you build them, it's not just land plan. You should be able to look down a portal of those front porches, and they generally should line up. It's intended to become friendly. It's intended, I wouldn't say forced, but you don't have much of a choice but to get to know your neighbor in this circumstance. So I don't know if entertaining in the traditional sense, but certainly there's going to be some folks get to know each other.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I mean, do we really, is there a necessity or maybe even a desire to try and get the, expand the roadway for parallel parking? Because do we have, I mean, would we, at my house, we have people over all the time, and if we pour out of our driveway quite frequently and park in the street, over here would be more congested. So, I mean, is that?
Well, so I would answer this 2 ways for you. First, in our experience, both in the Heights and Galveston and in the Woodlands, East Shore went through this. You're going to find that it's going to become a destination, whether they're visiting someone there or not. And theoretically, what should happen is when this thing starts kicking off, inevitably you're going to end up with more folks taking this idea, putting something else there on these other lots that we couldn't acquire. And so I think in the best interest of Old Town site, you would want to enhance that. And then secondly, you all already have this on across from the post office. So whoever, the right of way on the post office actually has a parking lane already built into it, and it makes a lot of sense. And so we simply said, Why don't we just take that and apply that same rationale to the other major travel corridors? Now, that doesn't go for everything. I wouldn't recommend it on every road, but certainly you have some major corridors that could be enhanced, not just from a pedestrian perspective and a parking perspective, but also landscaping perspective.
I get, maybe let's cut to the quick. Would you find it objectionable if we widen the road to allow for parallel parking in front of the houses?
Oh, absolutely not. We would recommend it. That's
Okay.
actually what our recommendation is.
All
I'm
right.
sorry if I misunderstood your question.
No, that's fine. I didn't want to mandate it because I don't think it's necessary for the development. But if you don't protest against it,
We would think it would be better for both parties.
I got it. And so maybe just a couple of things just to again to better understand. The AC units would go on the side of the house in the setback, correct?
Either the side or the rear, yes, sir.
So then we would grade the lots, and you would drain drain the back of the house into the alleyway.
Depends on how you all want the drainage and the topo. I haven't gone that far, but I imagine you're going to have both A and B drainage depending on where it is in the heights. We have both circumstances. We also have AB. We'll split it.
The only reason I bring it up, I know we've had issues with Perry Homes when they got tighter lots. They couldn't get the drainage through where the condensers were. And we have drainage easements along those properties that are typically platted there. And then if we can get rid of the drainage easement and put the condensers on smaller lots, that clears an issue. But you'd have to B-grade the lot because the lots and the back and the rear would go to the alleyway. So I think that's kind of where I would push towards. It's more of on the engineering side, but maybe we can work collectively with engineering to make sure we can have a collective drainage easement along the lot lines. So there can be some protection of the neighbors to ensure that the drainage in between the lots pushes in a direction, one direction or the other, just because there's such minimal area. But we don't end up putting. You only have enough room for the condenser, and it's probably the fence right next to it. We don't end up want to block that.
Sure. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you're worried about the slope and the ultimate. It's a fair question. I can understand it. It certainly was something we would be willing to talk to engineering about.
Okay, I don't know if that's necessarily a planning criteria. I don't really think we want to get that esoteric in the in any kind of PD amendments or PD changes, but let's work collectively with engineering to make sure that we have a solution to that. Okay. And then question for staff: what would how would we interpret? Do we have anybody from engineering on the call? Robert or Trent?
We have several members of engineering live on virtual.
Okay. How do we, maybe if you can recruit some answers to this, Martin, how would we interpret detention for this type of development? Do we have an exemption in Old Town?
I know we have discussed detention at several times. I see Raj on the line, so I will post that question to him. Raj?
Yes, Councilman Perez. When do we improve that Old Town side drainage improvement project for Walnut Street? We created the detention pond on Old Avenue to take care of the detention need for all those standards. So that detention is available. It's just on the lot acreage. And we have already come up with the cost per acre for that area.
Raj, I apologize, but I think I only got every other word.
Roadway, one street, or oh, okay. So, sorry, Councilman. So, what I'm
here, Raj, I'll pick up the ball for you.
We did a whole town improvement. We installed a detention pond. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so when we did the Old Town site, or when we did the Old Alvin drainage detention pond project, they included the calculation for impervious coverage within Old Town site, and they have a calculation for the buy-in program. They would just need to be able to provide conveyance to get to that pond.
So theoretically, payment in lieu of, they throw a storm sewer line in the alleyway, drain to the street, and they're fine, correct?
I believe that's our final answer on that.
Okay.
Or at least our working answer.
And when we do this PD, I know like when we have business.
Yeah, they still need to do drainage analysis.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Yes, the system is designed, but they have to storm from the site to Walnut Street because that storm system has not been designed to take the flow. So the storm sewer system from the site to Walnut Street still needs to be designed and upsized.
Martin, maybe I can get with you later. I think I'm just getting every other word from Raj. I hate to. He seems like he's on vacation, so I don't want to interrupt him. He's got palm trees behind him. So, but maybe we can get together. I just want to make sure we're working cooperatively with them. This would be a difficult project, obviously, if detention was triggered. Sounds like we've got a plan, but I want to make sure. Again, it's not a planning criteria, but if they get over the planning and can't get through the engineering, then it's what was the point of going through all the engineering work or the planning work?
Councilman Perez, this is Robert.
There he is.
Robert up. So I know Raj is breaking up pretty good, but with regards to that, the answer is detention's been accounted for in the Old Town detention system. It's just conveyance to get there. We've been talking to the developer about that, and they're aware that there is a buy-in pro rata fee associated with the buy-in to that detention basin, and therefore their detention requirements are mitigated associated with this particular land.
Okay, so they just throw a 100-year storm sewer line in the alleyway and they should be fine?
Correct. They'll just need to provide the conveyance system to get to the Walnut Street drain system, and you're all set.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Martin, where these houses abut existing businesses in the Old Town site, would the business or if somebody's going to build a business next to where these houses are, is that going to trigger masonry wall requirement since it's a residential use next to a commercial use?
Now it would be a masonry wall. After we did the text amendment in December, we have had other, not in this quadrant of Old Town, but in the southwest quadrant of Old Town, we've had other non-residential uses pop up against residential uses, particularly on, I believe, on Orange Street. And the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, has been lenient on providing variances to reduce that buffer since we are on such a smaller lot size. So it's not a guarantee, but it is something that we've seen before.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm getting towards. I'd like to maybe be more assertive where they don't have to go to ZBA. We want this development to happen, but we don't want to punish the businesses that they're going to abut since we've got a mixed use area here. We don't want one of the restaurants or somebody to have to expand and trigger a masonry wall requirement. And while it makes sense to us that, hey, I just go to ZBA and they'll grant you a variance, it just that those processes are very confusing to the layman. So maybe we can, as we're developing this PD or as we're talking about the text amendments later, we can incorporate something like that. So we don't have this kind of bear trap for all of the existing businesses that are triggered by this, which causes them to resent the development that's coming in next to them. I would agree with member Owens. Density, I think, is the direction we need to go with land prices and with, as the applicant stated, the homeowners nowadays, I guess younger than me, since Commissioner Eisenberg didn't call me about what I would want. So I guess those guys, we've seen that those guys really don't want much of a yard. So I think this is kind of befitting those younger generations. I would just, one thing I would ask is that would we have some use control once we've done these zone amendments where somebody couldn't convert one of these to a law office? My concern being if they're so dense and in this area where we allow both residential and commercial uses, we wouldn't want these to convert to something that would allow people to try or have people have a customer base that would clog the roadway, I think, a little bit more than intended, particularly during business hours. So is there, I think maybe as we develop the PD, we put in some restrictions as like once we allow this lot width, that it's restricted to a residential use only, and then possibly, I mean, I think we have this already, but make sure that there's no mother-in-law suites where it can get rented out. It's one kitchen, 2-car garage, something like that. I assume that's no problem for y'all, right? That's all I have.
Councilmember?
I like the development. I'm originally from South Carolina, and this reminds me a lot of how they build homes in Charleston. So it really looks nice. Are these houses built on a slab or are they elevated?
Both. It just depends on where we are. Sorry about that. So in portions of the Heights and also portions of Galveston, we have to build up for the floodplain. Okay. But then in the Woodlands area, Spring Woods, that area, they're built on slab on grade, and parts of the West Heights have been on slab on grade. So it just depends. Well, we obviously have to do some architectural and building designs because we want it to look like a front porch in the traditional sense. It just depends on the circumstances that we're dealt with.
From the pictures, it looks like there's no windows down the sides. Is that correct?
No, sir. There's absolutely windows down the side.
There are? Okay.
Yes, sir. Those houses live very large because it's an open concept. So we may build as a throwback on the exterior, but our interiors are high end. It's modern conveniences, and people like windows and people like light.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor. I like it, and I'd be for it.
Looks good. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I also love these. I'm one of the, I guess, younger members of council that I've spoken many times about the lack of diversification in the housing available here in the city. And I sold my house last year because I had a giant yard and just too much going on. So, I mean, this is more, I think, in step with what I would look for, or what I'm actively looking for. So I'm excited to see something like this come in. How many models do you have? Like, how many versions of this are you intending to build if this moves forward?
By versions, you mean floor plans?
Yes.
It's a good question. We're still working through that. My guess is probably 3 or 4 per product size, because we're not, some submarkets take better to the 2s versus the 1s and vice versa. But I think a good confident number is 3 on the 2 stories and 3 on the 1 stories.
Okay, because I mean, I see the examples that you have here, and there's little, changes from one to the next. And I think that looks really cool. And I just wanted to make sure that we don't have, just a bunch of cookie cutter one after the next.
Oh, right. So, all right. So so within each plan, we'll have 2, 3, or 4 elevations. And as you so pointed out, there's just small variants. And that's kind of the way we used to build. We would have, these happen to be between 2,100 and 2,350 square feet, all 3 of those. And in fact, I think 2 or 3 of those may be the same plan, but they look a little different from the outside. So it's a common look from afar till you get up close, and there's little variances. We would maintain that similar look.
Okay, awesome. And then it's been mentioned several times, but I mean us going back and looking at these types of denser residential development areas. I mean, I just did some based on a more traditional 60-foot lot, if we put in these 25 foot lots at roughly the same average price as a home on a 60-foot lot in the city, I mean, we're looking at about 140% increase in taxable value. So, I mean, that's phenomenal for our city, and what we can actually recover in revenue. I did have a question about the alleyways. And so it looks like you're proposing a one-way alleyway. Is that correct?
It would be our recommendation, yes, sir. I mean, and obviously we would have to evaluate each circumstance because there are existing users, but we would recommend that.
So I've got a couple of things there. Number one, just if you could illustrate kind of the recommendation also with this alleyway on how our emergency services would access these types of units. If you could just provide an illustration of what that would look like.
Generally speaking, I've seen them managed like for fire. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
They usually just pull up to the front of the street and take care of business. I mean, these lot depths aren't anything beyond what you currently have in the city. So my question would, well, how do you handle a 60 by 125 foot lot currently?
Sure.
Probably the same way, right? So in fact, one could argue that you have two opportunities to get in and out versus one.
Okay.
We haven't had any pushback relative to this design. Now, obviously, you know, you go shallower or wider or whatever, I mean, things can change, but we've always had folks just manage it from the front street, just like they would a traditional, what a Houston traditional home
Right.
would look like, right?
Yeah, and I just asked that just so you can provide an illustration for people. But going back to the alleyway, though, is there any way? I'm just thinking. I don't know a lot about residential developments. I'm not a developer, but I do see that we're constantly talking up here about getting behind on street and sidewalk maintenance, things like that. Whenever I see an alleyway like this, I'm thinking that's another road that we would have to maintain. Is there any way that you could or have done in the past restricted access to this and maintained it so that it's not the city's responsibility to maintain an alleyway that's really just serving these specific, units? I'm just curious if it's ever come forward.
If you were in a isolated, for lack of a better description, planned community that was in and of itself 75 acres with no other influencers and I could gate it, the answer would be yes. The challenge you have is also the unique opportunity that I think you all have is that, I don't know what's going to happen in 15 years. I mean, this may all build out. There may be a new restaurant that goes in there. And so I think mathematically it would be difficult to make work on our end. And I'm not entirely sure that you all would want to give up that right on your end. I think some control aspect might be beneficial to you all long term.
I could see that argument specifically. I mean, if we're talking about having drainage and stuff in there, I think it would be beneficial. But I'm just thinking out loud, and
I think it would be difficult mathematically to work with that number of lots. One consideration we had was, well, what if we only buy 5 lots? Well, the problem with that is you don't really get the sense of community and streetscape until you get larger lots. And so it's one of the reasons why we targeted these quadrants. We felt like we could really create an incredibly unique streetscape in those big quadrants. And then in the future, if other folks want to join in, I mean, obviously we would love to talk to them about building more houses, but doing one here and one here and one here in a scattershot approach doesn't really help a whole lot.
Yeah, and going back to the density, point that I made earlier and several other members have made, I think that that's at least one good thing that we'll be able to recover a little bit more revenue on these types of developments than we would on a traditional lot size. But I think this is great. Very excited to see something like this come to Pearland, particularly in the Old Town site. I'll probably be fervently waiting, and might even be a customer. Who knows? But this is something that I'm excited to see in our city. So I appreciate you bringing this to us.
Councilmember? Yep. Thank you, Mayor. So this is coming to us as a PD. I guess I want to ask a question. Should we relook at the UDC for this part of town in total? And if not, are we gonna, this is successful, are we gonna continue to have these smaller PDs?
I would say best long-term would be to look at the UDC and how do we better incorporate and allow allowance of mixed uses and higher densities. I think from a timeline for the project, the PD works best now. I think we're about to go into the comprehensive plan process here in the next couple of months. I think that's the perfect time to look at that as a community as a whole and incorporate sort of those wishes into that document. And then coming out of that process, amend the UDC to incorporate these new allowances.
Okay. All right. No, that makes sense. I like the project. Yeah, I won't ramble on like everybody else.
Councilmember?
Yeah, thank you. I just have a couple of remarks. Like Member Owen said, this is something that we've been calling for over and over again. Kind of first in the Old Town site plan, which when you look up that online, it's a kind of a PDF. It's so old, just a PDF of very bad quality. Then in the South Highway 35 redevelopment corridor plan, the Pearland Prosperity Plan, which we just did in 2019. In that one specifically, which I served on with members Little and Perez, we call for for pursuing the development of a dynamic walkable mixed-use district and also diversifying and maintaining Pearland's housing stock. And, like, why are we trying to do that? Parts of our city are getting older, particularly over on this end of town, and we kind of have to manage that. And we have an opportunity, what is that going to look like? Is that going to fall into decline and disrepair? Or are we going to make the investments and decisions needed to revitalize those areas and make Pearland as great of a place in 20 years as it has been for the last 20? I think this is great. I like this type of development a lot more than the other type of development I see often at 35 and 518. So I think we should be all in favor of trying to make this work. And just to hit on some of the points made by members Hernandez and by Commissioner Eisenberg and others, my friends, who many of whom grew up here and enjoyed growing up in Pearland, they go to school and they go and get good paying jobs, and they look back at the housing stock of Pearland and don't really see anything that excites them or that they want to be a part of, and they live somewhere else. They live in Houston, they live in Austin, and they don't come back, and we lose that talent. And I personally see that I'm not super excited about a lot of the options that I see. So I think this is great, and look forward to partnering on this and moving it forward. So thank you guys for the presentation.
Yeah, and I'll round it out. I guess one of the questions I had, John, specifically, and it may be answered more directly in our public hearing later, in how to do the PD. Obviously, these 7.4 acres are not contiguous, and typically a PD has to be contiguous. So I think what we're looking at later is making a PD where it's non-contiguous, and then what if they get these 3 sections built out? Will we be able to, lack of a better term, annex property into an existing PD as long as since it's not contiguous?
So the plan is coming out of this meeting, if council and the commission are receptive to the concept, is as the PD continues to be developed and refined, the engineering is looked at more. When it comes back, we'll also bring back an amendment to the UDC to allow such a PD. So we'll look at the PD requirements and modify those proposed modifications to those to allow this. And within that amendment, we'll look at the ability to amend that PD, because you can amend a PD and add additional land, and then such. Maybe it's limited to the old town. We'll look at that, but then add other parcels around it to allow them the same capabilities.
Okay. And
Mayor Cole?
Yes.
I'd like to just, whenever your comments are done, I'd like to make mine as well.
Okay. I'm sorry. Your picture wasn't up there, Councilmember Cam Carr, so I skipped you, and I apologize. Go ahead.
No, I have similar concerns that you do, as well as what Member Carbone said. I am uncomfortable giving a golden ticket to Sullivan Brothers and knowing that they are probably on the higher end of the caliber curve, than having, for lack of a better word, low-end builder come in and saying that we gave them comparable adjustment. So I really think I would be more comfortable permitting 2-year supply of lots for this instance, and then giving the UDC a stronger look, because we do not want to be playing the favoritism game. And to be honest, I don't think we all want to deal with this every other month for the next 6 years. For the gentleman at the podium, I didn't catch your name. What is the price per square foot on the price point for these homes? I know we're at $300,000 a home, but are we talking 125?
We'd probably be 175 to 220. I'm guessing, if I'm doing my math right, 1,500 square foot house would be 300. Be a little bit bigger than that.
Got it. So we're talking about $23.7 million in revenue across almost 80 homes, correct? Plus or minus?
I'll take your word for it. I don't know. I haven't.
80 times 300, but yeah.
Sounds good.
Fair enough. My question for you would be, with that much commitment and revenue coming in, you made a comment about pedestrian friendly. Where do you envision these people and these families walking to right now? You've got a major highway on the northern boundary, on the western boundary, and a relatively fast-moving minor collector on the southern boundary.
Well, you've got a post office, you've got several restaurants, you've got a coffee shop. I think you might find that folks are pretty adept at getting across. You have several areas of worship to the north.
Sure.
Not to mention.
So are you dedicating currently park space for these 80 particularly homeowners right now?
No, sir.
All right. Would you be willing to consider such?
I don't really have room for it. I mean, these are existing Wow, lots.
As a greedy scum sucking developer, as my professional trade, that's fairly common. I'm just wondering, would you or the team be willing to give up one lot to make a small park for these families?
We can certainly discuss it. I would probably prefer to continue the enhanced sidewalks and enhancement of Grand versus losing a lot. I would also prefer to enhance what you have in the city, but it's certainly something we can discuss.
Well, I mean, just let me give context. Right north by the Grace Church is a small pocket park. It's obviously bigger than a lot. I don't think that we expect that. But I think, you know, the biggest thing that'll happen is you guys make a lot of money, and then we get to talk about how there's no park space because some angry resident said we didn't put a park there. And very similar with sidewalks. Right now, a sidewalk to a highway is not very enviable, I think. So those are considerations I think that the staff needs to engage on. What I would probably tell you, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, you've got 6 major corners or intersections. Some kind of thematic element tying those together, if we're going to have really nice sidewalks, might be a consideration. But ultimately, the product is good. But you're at 220 square. I have families that we sell $400,000 homes to, and they expect park space. So that would be a consideration that I think we'd have to look at. Okay. Other than that, I think it's a good situation. I do agree, like I said, with members Carbone and the mayor. I'm uncomfortable permitting 79 homes, but I think a reasonable year or 2 year supply with a harder look at the UDC update, incorporating the request asks, would prevent us from having to deal with this issue many times over. And I think that's a consideration that we should bring before the council. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Camcar. And just to round out, you know, in 2005, when we did that Old Town site study, it really pointed to this type of development ultimately for the Old Town site. And even then, I used to tell people, until there's a fix for some of the drainage woes in this area, you're simply not going to have the development come forward. And so as the city completed the detention pond over off of Old Alvin, you now have an opportunity for it, and you're starting to see, you know, the type of development come in. In addition to that, I think Grand Boulevard can truly become grand. We've named it Grand. It's been grand forever. Now it's time for Grand to be grand. And I think that's a long linear park. It also connects to the south through Baker's Landing. Baker's Landing has a required trail plan. And if you go back on the back side of the townhomes that are over there, you'll see a notch in that fence, and that's where that trail is supposed to lead out and through up Grand. And yeah, we'll have to figure out how we interface with 518. But of course, you move across Grand and you go on up. You've got the Montessori school. I could see, and I said this 10 years ago, the theater that's at that school should be in the hands of the city for a community theater. It would have been perfect for a nighttime activity. You keep moving forward, you've got Zelensky's Park, you keep moving forward, and you've got the park that's off of Orange. You go through that, and you put in a pedestrian bridge, and you're into the trail plan, and you go east and west. If you go west or east from there, you can go all the way to Clear Creek and into the trail plan and in our ultimate trail system. So I think there's some real opportunities. It starts with a vision. It starts with some critical mass and move forward. And so I think this has probably been one of our best opportunities in a while to see something happen in the Old Town site. So I kind of welcome that. And so we'll see I think staff hopefully has plenty of direction from council comments as well as P&Z comments tonight. And we'll look forward to our public hearing in our next round and then see what you guys come back with.
Thank you for your time.
All right. So with that, we'll adjourn this workshop. And I just had a question real quick. Do we know if anyone from META Planning is online? Nope. Perfect. Okay. So I know we're running, well, this was going to be a behind night no matter what. So we'll move to workshop item number 2, input and discussion request by META Planning and Design LLC, represented by Jennifer Curtis, applicant on behalf of TX-Land Parcels LLC, CBL Properties owner, for a joint workshop regarding a proposed amendment to the Pearland Town Center plan development to allow 142-unit detached townhome residential development on approximately 14 acres of land in sub-area C of the Pearland Town Center Plan Development District. With that, I'll kick it to our staff for a report.
Mayor, if I could, real quickly, we have 2 representatives here, I think. I just wanted to make sure that Ryan Day is also here on behalf of the applicant. Okay, thank you.
So is Martin, do you have that or someone else?
Yes, sir. I was just waiting to grab Josh's attention to throw me back to presenter mode. And then I will get Mohammed online to go through the presentation. Thank you, sir.
Martin, is Commissioner Fuertes come back now, or do we leave him?
We are past the first agenda item, so he is more than welcome to come back and participate and listen in on the discussion.
Thank you.
And I will say, while they're getting this this hooked up, these are the type of developments that we will probably see more of as we get to more of a infill left in our city. So it'll be interesting to see as we go through the comprehensive plan update, what type of other types of housing stock, other types of housing developments we will see as our city continues to mature. So it's going to be fun to watch over. What do we anticipate, John, about 1.5 years on that project?
With the comp plan, yes, we'd look to early 2022 to bring something back to council.
So Martin, do you have your controls?
I have the controls, and I apologize, I misspoke.
There we go.
Let me introduce Florence Buaku to discuss the Pearland Town Center plan development.
Perfect.
Florence, I believe I have the screen ready for you. Please take it away.
Good evening. Martin, I'm still waiting to see the screen.
Can we see the screen? Yes, Florence.
Okay. I'll just do it from my end. I'll open a copy and go along. Okay. So, good evening, Mayor, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and members of the City Council. My name is Florence Buaku. I'm a planner with the Community Development Department. So, the purpose of this workshop is to discuss and receive feedback about a proposed amendment to the Pearland Town Center PD. This amendment would allow 142 townhomes in sub-area C, which is a portion of the PD dedicated to an event center. Next slide. And so in this slide is the sub-area map of the PD. There are a total of 7 sub-areas. Originally, the PD was going to dedicate sub-area E, which is the area shown within the green triangle for townhomes, but it has that area has since reverted to commercial, and so the applicant is proposing to put in a town center development to replace the original intent of the PD, which was to have an event center in an area south of the current main street of the Pearland Town Center. So that's the area shown in red. And so this is the proposed layout. It's going to be the southern terminus of the current Main Street shopping mall within the Pearland Town Center. There are going to be 142 townhome lots, and together with park amenities, the community is going to be gated. So there are 2 gates to allow, or 3 gates to allow entry and exit from the proposed townhome development. So when the applicant says, talks about townhomes, these are not attached townhomes. The applicant is proposing detached single-family townhomes, which are just like single-family homes on narrow 28-foot lots. So something similar to what we've seen or we saw previously, but just with a different architectural style. And so just to go over the summary of deviations needed to make this possible, the applicant is proposing a number of amendments to the original PD to be able to put in this development. The first major amendment will be to the sub-area use requirements, and so to change it from an event center to a townhouse development. Other amendments proposed regard the classification of the driveways within the PD. There's also a proposed amendment for lot sizes, and so to change it from a 30-foot minimum lot size, which is the lot size requirement for townhomes within the original PD, to 28-foot wide lots. There's also a proposed deviation to change the density requirement to increase it. Currently, within the PD, it's 9.4 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is proposing to change it or to increase it to almost 12 dwelling units per acre. And then there are also other amendments regarding open space requirements within the PD. The applicant is looking to change the language a little, and also the minimum lot area requirements, as well as landscape requirements within the PD. So again, here is a more detailed or a more zoomed in look of the proposed townhome development, together with open spaces and public amenities. There's also a common parking area or visitor parking area. And then all streets within this PD are going to be private 28-foot streets. This is a look at the typical lot layout within the PD. They do have 2 options, one similar to what we typically see for patio homes, and one which allows setbacks on both sides of the 28-foot lot. So moving on to the next slide, this is a look at some of the proposed outdoor amenities and common spaces within the PD, or within the proposed townhome development that the applicant is looking at. And then finally, we do have some renderings of the proposed product type. Again, these are single family detached narrow lot townhome development. And so that ends the staff presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. We'll move on to applicant presentation.
There we go. Okay, good evening, everyone. That's loud enough. My name is Jennifer Curtis with META Planning Design. I'm the applicant on this project representing the developer. I know you guys have a long night, so I will just go very briefly through my presentation. Florence introduced everything really well. The site's in the Pearland Town Center. This is one of the last undeveloped parcels. The entertainment center theater that was contemplated never moved forward, so we're looking at other uses for this site. It is currently 3 flag lots that take access to Business Center Drive and Kirby Drive to the east and the west. And as Florence mentioned, we're taking access from the driveway, the private driveway that serves the town center that leads out to Business Center Drive and Kirby Drive. The site plan, I'll get into a little bit more detail. I do first want to mention terminology. We first approached this thinking of this as a townhome style development, but UDC treats townhomes specifically as attached units. And I think the character of what we're trying to do here really is more suited to what we would think of as a townhome development. It's urban, it's dense, it's walkable, it's right next to the town center. But we are looking to do detached lots, single family homes on their own lots. So I might throw the word townhome in here, but just please bear in mind that we are talking about detached single family homes on small lots. So talking about the neighborhood character, that's something that we think is really the heart of what we're trying to do here. We're talking about a walkable core, you know, just like the old town site, the new town center is really meant to be dense and urban and walkable, and it's meant to have mixed uses, and it's meant to have the convenience of being able to live and work and play in the same area, and to be able to walk from your home to the store, or to go meet up with friends at a restaurant, or to, you know, shop, or all those things that are supposed to be together in the town center. And a residential component is a really important factor in that. And if you don't have those homes nearby, then you don't really have mixed use. You don't have people who can walk from their home to work here or to shop here. So providing a residential component in the town center, we think, is really important. And part of that is the dense character and the ability to have small lots that are close to the street, that have sidewalks that connect. And that's something that we are really focused on, is the walkable connection. We think that's really suited to the town center, and something that would really complement it and be an improvement to the community. So we are proposing trails throughout the community that connect out to the trail around the lake, and that would provide access, you know, through the gates. There's several pedestrian gates around the fence on all sides that will give that access and make those connections and give people the ability to walk around and get to the town center and get to the existing trails and the sidewalks in the community. We're proposing private streets. These would be gated. They're 28 feet wide. The paving section is pretty similar to what you would find in a typical public street, but these would be privately maintained. There's not, it's not the typical cross section where you have the paving and then the right of way outside it. The homes would be really close to the street. Again, looking at that pedestrian character and you know, having, I feel like my microphone keeps cutting out. And having a close pedestrian scale on the street. We are also proposing guest parking spaces scattered throughout the community. So there's, you know, the central park area, there's guest parking spaces there, and there's guest parking spaces to either side of the neighborhood as well. We are developing in 2 phases. The park space and mini space would be developed in the first phase. Looking specifically at the park space, we do have 2 dedicated amenitized parkland areas for the community that would be within the gates for the use of the residents, in addition to your usual landscape buffers and little landscape areas at the ends of the lots, at the ends of each block. And those areas in the middle would be improved. We're planning to provide a little pavilion, a gathering space for the residents, kind of outdoor venue, as well as a dog park area for the residents who live in this area to take their dogs for a little walk. Some pictures of that there. And talking about green space, we are going to have these community green spaces that are available for the residents as a whole, but each lot is going to have its own little private green space as well. And just like we had in the previous presentation, these are smaller lots. They don't have a big yard, but everybody likes to have their own little private haven, and each lot is going to have a little bit of its own backyard. Talking about the fences, we do want to have a nice masonry fence up against the main driveway there that provides a little bit of buffer against noise and light pollution from the commercial areas at night, and a little bit more security. But wherever we can around the lakes, we do want to have that 4-foot wrought iron fence that really gives a good view for the residents looking out to that nice lake. That's an amenity feature that we want to take advantage of and connect the neighborhood to the existing lake, and really open up the feel of the community to make it more integrated as much as we can. And like Florence said, we have a couple of plot plans here of kind of typical site plans. Some of them are 0-foot building line on one side, typical 3 feet on the other side. Probably some of them are going to be wider, maybe 5 feet on some sides. That would be more like your typical patio home of what you would see in Pearland, where you have a 0-foot side building line. Some of them are going to have the option to be 3-foot building line on either side, where it would be more clearly distinctly a single home on a single lot. And just like Florence showed, here's some renderings and some photographs of this exact product that exists already in Springbrook Village and what the homes look like. And you can see there is some good architectural variation. You can have different materials, different roof lines, different front facades, different colors, and it can still look like a really nice neighborhood. You can still have some variation in what you see on the street scene. We do intend to match what the Pearland Town Center looks like, and make sure that the materials are cohesive and it looks like a part of the town center and can really complement what's already there in the town center. So I just wanted to talk really briefly about the benefits that we see with this housing type. One of them is with having a detached product, unlike an attached townhome unit, you don't have common walls, and that can be a really big selling point. People like to have their own distinct home, and they like to have, the ability to say, this is my home and I don't have any common walls with anybody else. You don't hear your neighbor playing trombone at 3 a.m. You have that little bit of airspace in between. Also, being able to have your own individual land ownership is really nice, and it can be a small lot, but you should be able to say, this is my lot and I own it. That's a little feels a little different than having a condo or an apartment where you have neighbors on all sides. We really think, like I said before, this is really well suited to the town center. It's urban and it's walkable, and we can really play into the strengths of the town center. If there's one place in Pearland where we really need a small, dense residential community, I think the town center is the place that it's suited for. And like we said before too, smaller lots means smaller maintenance, and that's a big selling point for people in my generation. So here's the design plan, again, just one more time. And the big question that we have for you guys tonight is, how can we achieve this? If this is something that you guys want, then, what do we need to do with the PD to make this happen? And I'll just touch, like Florence did on the big picture items, is we need to allow this sub-area to be residential instead of an event center. We need to be able to take access for these lots from that commercial driveway. We want to be able to do those 28-foot wide private streets instead of a public street. And we want to be able to do the lot size that we need to make this product work and to provide this character, this urban residential character on this site, including the park space that we have, incorporating that into the community and having the flexibility to do it the way it needs to be done. So that briefly wraps up what I have to say, and I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Just a little bit. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Day with Meritage Homes. As most of you know, Meritage has a very long and successful history in the city of Pearland, and we look to continue that with this project, albeit this is a bit different than what we've done historically in Pearland. As Jennifer mentioned, we feel like if there's an area of town to kind of think outside the box. So this would be a great spot in order to do it, in order to really create that live, work, play environment in a for sale product. Again, happy to answer any questions that you have and appreciate your consideration.
All right, so that completes the applicant's presentation. All right, thank you. And yeah, we'll kick it over to planning and zoning here in just a second well, go ahead to Madam Chairwoman, Ms. Cade, go ahead and turn it over to your folks.
Thank you, Mayor Cole.
There we go.
Commissioner Earls, any questions or comments?
Thank you. I guess a couple of questions maybe about first the price point in that area for those homes, and with this being created, does that create an HOA in that area?
Yes, sir. An HOA would be created for the entire subdivision. We do have several agreements in place with CBL, the mall developer and operator, for some common maintenance regarding the trail system and the detention pond, as well as the ring road. And price points that we're anticipating at this point range from $300 to $350, so we're averaging right around that $325, $330.
And I imagine it may be a challenge for that private driveway on Saturdays, the additional congestion of traffic with those homes combined with that of town center. I don't know if it's speed bumps on that private drive now. That may be something to consider as well.
Absolutely. Our goal would be for no one to have to even use their car. Everything that they would need would be right there in the town center, but absolutely agree with you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Earls. Commissioner Boswell, questions and comments?
I guess several comments. I do like this for this area. This is exactly what I envisioned for the town center, a walkable area that you can live, work, play. So I do think this is the best area to do it. I echo the sentiments of Commissioner Earls. I was worried about the congestion of that area because it already is very busy. But the fact that it is going to be a walkable area for those that live there, I do like that about it. But I do agree. I would want to know what impacts, if any, this would have to existing traffic in that area because it does get quite busy. Thank you.
Did you get breakfast, TJ? Has he eaten?
Commissioner Eisenberg?
I don't have any comments.
Commissioner Fortes?
I couldn't find the unmute button.
It's okay.
Sorry about that. I think these, I'm hoping that we do change the UDC to redefine townhomes. I think we're seeing some individual or detached, I think is a common word. So I hope when we take a look at some of the UDC amendments, we look at the difference. The market is telling us detached is out there, and that's it's a nice product. I like it a lot. I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, but I'll try to say this correctly. I'm not a politician though, so bear with me, please. I'm not overly concerned with changing the PUD here, the CBL PUD for this edition. The PUD itself, when I was a new commissioner, 2006, 2007. I believe it went through 10 amendments within the first 60 days. It was, I remember it being a political football, and I think the mayor and Mr. Woody Owens, Councilmember Owens, was on, I think they were both council members at the time, and I remember just how contested this PD or it was a PUD back then, I believe, was. And they had to come back to the P&Z over the next 5 years or 4 years, probably 20 times total. The first year a lot, just to get their buildings built. There was always a problem. Anyways, that being said, I'm glad to see a project like this take hold. It's been a long time coming. It's a difficult piece of land to work with. It's an island. It's an island in a PD. It had a different use discussed with the city. I think the city was trying to get an event center in the area, and that piece of land was for that event center. And I think they held off doing something like this because of that. Townhome regs are difficult to begin with. Again, we have to think outside the box here, outside the rules. The PD, again, is difficult. It's a difficult time for the landlord at this point. I believe the landlord's in bankruptcy. This is a mall we're talking about. These mall developers are losing customers, because of the COVID issues, associated issues. There's I know a limitation of 9.4 units per acre, but again, I think a PD amendment takes care of that. This is a different product, not something that our rules were designed for. So I don't have an issue with the excess of 9.4. I don't have an issue at all with that. In open space, when I read through the PD or PUD, there was a lot of discussions about open space as well as the city regulations. I don't have an issue either. In the apartments, the multifamily that's there, there's a lot of open space in that mall. In fact, that is the largest walking path, I bet you, private walking path in the entire city. And the shame of it is, I've seen probably 4 people walking on that walking path in 14 years. And now we're going to finally get some use out of it with some homes that abut that walking path. I'm excited for this project, and I hope it goes through, and I hope I didn't alienate myself too much with my comments. They weren't meant rude. I'm excited about the project. I'm passionate.
Thank you. I believe I agree with Commissioner Fuertes, and I don't really have anything additional to add. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you to the Planning and Zoning Commissioners. Just to put things in some historical context. The number of units that the multifamily was allowed to do was a calculation based on the whole 150 acres that made up the town center. Staff went through quite a bit of a calculation to come up with X number of homes and at this particular density, and we'll put that onto the whole multifamily. And I think in hindsight, Commissioner was correct. Many hours of council's time to get this PUD passed and approved and done back in those days. It was a very contentious time to get it done, simply because I think a lot of it was way outside of our box at the time. I think today it would be a much different approach. If there's one thing I think we did in hindsight that could have done better is a higher density. Should have done it from day one, should have had more living units there. Even the multifamily that's there now will prove that it's constantly full. The fact that this is a for sale product, I think, is better. Certainly, there's more investment in the area. If it's not going to be, and I call it, Jennifer, an inner city town. That's what I call it in the development world. It is a townhome, but I call it an inner city town. It's a detached product. If you didn't have this, your only other uses would be an event center, which has proven not to materialize, or traditional multifamily. With probably an even higher density number than, call it 10 an acre. You'd probably want something closer to 20 an acre. So then you're talking about, 280 to 300 units on it. So I think it's a good use. We can ultimately talk about the nuts and bolts of the PD as we move towards that. But certainly this trail, it contemplated, walkability for the multifamily. That too was a very contentious item back in the day that we approved this. So glad to see something going on here. I have envisioned, brownstones or something of that nature here. I would ask, I guess, why not just a traditional townhome attached? Why not that?
The benefits that Jennifer mentioned with not sharing a wall, a lot of these folks are either coming from a 70-foot traditional single-family home, or they're coming from an apartment. And either way, they don't want to share a wall. The apartment folks are used to sharing a wall and hearing conversations through it. And the folks who are downsizing want to have just that little extra space there as well. So I think there's benefits in having that space in between the homes for those reasons.
Fair assessment. With that, I'm going to kick it in reverse order. Councilmember Cam Carr, I'm coming to you. That way I don't forget about you, because you're not on my screen here, so I don't see you. Sure. I apologize for that.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Day, welcome to Pearland. I haven't had the pleasure to meet you before, but you and I run similar circles, so it's great to have you here. What is the price point may have been mentioned earlier, Mr. Day? What are you targeting right now? The low 300s or mid 300s?
Yes, sir. The 300 to 350 range.
Okay. And right now, you guys are giving right now, it looks like 0.8 acres out of this, was it 14-acre site towards park space?
Yes, sir. That's correct. The PD does contemplate a more holistic, taking a look at all the open space within the PD when calculating some of the park space as well.
Right. And so right now, then that would put you at 142 homes on 13.2 acres, which is roughly speaking, what is that, 10.7 units to the acre, slightly under 11. That's fine.
If I could just interject.
What was that?
To bear in mind, please, that about 2.5 acres of the whole acreage is the ring road, which is actually part of the flagstaff of these lots. So the buildable acreage is like 11.5-ish.
So even less.
Yes. Because part of it is already the road.
I appreciate that. Okay. So, my concerns here are not the builder. My concerns are just there's only so many acres that are contiguous and undeveloped on right now. And as was remarked earlier in the presentation from the staff, there was much higher hopes for this. For me, with my greedy scum-sucking developer hat on, I do not normally put many homes next to parking lots. And that seems to be the real amenity of this part of the town center, is you just have a place to park your car wherever you want. I'm not crazy about the product right now as it stands. I'm a believer in the American dream and having opportunities. The price point, there are single family homes that are in this range. My questions are what is the highest and best use of this? And I don't necessarily know that that's single family at this juncture, considering we have a sports center that has been looked at, other different facilities that would be more creative to what the greater plan is for Pearland. That being said, I'm one person and I have one opinion. It's a fairly informed opinion, but just an opinion. So that's kind of where I stand as right now.
Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just have a couple comments. First, as somebody who lives right in this area and uses this walking trail almost every night, I would say everyone can feel a little bit assured that it does get more use than was said. But appreciate that. I would echo some of Member Cam Carr's concerns. I again, not only do I live like right here, but I also would consider myself to be in the market for a townhome. This, and not because of the density, but this isn't kind of the townhome that I would envision myself purchasing. Just, and I think it's certainly a contrast to the development that we saw previous to this, just in terms of kind of the character of the units and kind of also the diversity of the units. I think just from my perspective, this one misses the mark in that regard. And so this is not something that is particularly exciting to me. And again, especially when the swap is being made for an entertainment district that of course has had difficulty materializing, but is part of our long-term plan in almost everything we talked about. We talked about it just at the last city council meeting. Hey, what are we going to do with the 51% rule? Because we don't have a lot of entertainment options in Pearland. So to swap out something designated as an entertainment center for something that I think lacks a certain appeal, at least, again, from my limited perspective, is just not super exciting to me. But that's just kind of my takes. Thanks.
Councilmember.
Yeah, Councilman Orlando kind of put it into words. It's the first one was pretty exciting with the elevations and the architecture and that part of town. Here, it's a lot of density right here. And on one of these maps, I was looking at the houses down there in Southgate and just comparing. On the screen now, you can just see the density from Southgate compared to this proposed development. And I struggle with that right here when we're trading from a event center or entertainment kind of area to some narrow lot townhomes.
Well, Member Orlando said a lot of what I was going to say. I think that, we've had this discussion. I think it's an ongoing discussion about our 51% rule and trying to think of ways to bring more entertainment options into the city. And I think this would be taking away an opportunity to really develop this into something special and unique. And again, the contrast, unfortunately, with the two back-to-back, the contrast was just huge. Kind of glaring. This is, and I made the comment actually with the previous presentation that, I wanted to know what the diversification of, just kind of the architectural look and feel of each unit and stuff. And I don't really get that with this. I also shared some of the concerns, Commissioner Earls brought forward traffic concerns. I think that's also, and I realize it's to walk, but, again, I think putting something here that would be bringing entertainment would be something where people would walk to that rather than, what's existing, because there's already, like I said, the residences there, as you can see in this picture that's up on the screen already. But I think even if you did maybe 50% of this residences and the other 50% dedicated to something else, I don't know. But as it stands right now, it's just not. So not to bring up the previous mayor, but our long-sitting mayor, Mayor Reed, would always say, this is special, or Pearland is special, and something about this is special, and it's always just kind of stuck. Whenever I see something come forward, I always think, does this have that? Does it make me say, oh, this is special? I'm not really getting that from this. I know that's a really subjective opinion, but that's what these workshops are for, to give you the feedback and kind of, I would see myself, as Member Orlando said, as potentially one of your members of the target audience for this. So as a potential, buyer of something like this, that would be my initial reaction. And just to give you my honest feedback, I hope you would appreciate that at face value.
Yeah, I certainly do appreciate it. And I won't speak for CBL, but I'll provide some of the history for the site as well. They have had groups like AMC Movie Theaters and Lifetime Fitness who have put this tract under contract and have dropped it. And those are the types of businesses that are not thriving right now that are also going bankrupt, similar to what CBL is. So I think you're going to see in the future, some adaptive reuse for some of the larger spaces like the Macy's and the Dillards as the face of retail changes, not only due to COVID, but due to the Amazon effect as well. So I think there will be other opportunities for adding additional entertainment space as things start to open up within existing structures within the town center.
Well, I appreciate y'all bringing this to us. So I think it does add to the discussion that we need to have in this city. And, Mayor Cole made that point. We've got to start talking and thinking about density. And I think this is a great starter to that conversation. I don't know if y'all can go back and have other other iterations of this or other applications. I don't know, but I think it's a great starter point for a conversation we need to have. And so I appreciate you bringing it to us.
Absolutely. And if I may, real quick, I'll speak to the number of floor plans. We do have 6 different floor plans offered in this particular category, and each of those floor plans has 4 to 5 different elevations. So we can vary those elevations and bring a little bit more character to what was presented on the slideshow there.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Councilmember?
I like the concept. I like the private neighborhood, the gated neighborhood. I don't have a problem with the density after the previous presentation. And then I looked at the elevation of these units for $300,000 to $350,000 price range. I was really let down. I think going forward, if this project comes to fruition, I would definitely consider changing the exterior of these homes. Hopefully the interior has a little more appeal. But to be honest with you, they look like elevated mobile homes from the elevation in the pictures we saw. And but I do like the concept, and I would support the concept. That's all I have.
Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm supportive of the product. I've been to a number of these meetings, both before I was a council member and while. And I struggle with the argument of, well, could be something better here. If there could be, there would be. The town center's been in place for quite a while. If we were going to have a multi-sports facility or a large entertainment product, we've gone through several economies since this thing's been put in. It would have gotten put in. Holding off for, hey, maybe there's something better. Means that we just end up with something worse, which is just empty, undeveloped land. So, if we don't want it to be residential, I'll certainly argue. I can certainly understand that argument. But just saying, well, we'd like this, but there could be something better here. If we just wait out for a little bit longer, I just struggle with that mentality. I do agree with a couple of council members. It was probably a little bit of misfortune on your part that you followed the other presentation. Realistically, that's an alleyway development that's got garages in the rear, and then the front facade can be completely clean and porched, and you're not proposing that here. Maybe as a consideration, just because of compare and contrast. So. But I'd be supportive of the product. I'm supportive of the product with respect to the land subdivision. I do think that maybe maybe a little bit more character in the elevations, which is not. Different facades are not really all that expensive. It's not my money, so I'm saying this kind of silly, but I think it's something we could and should support. With respect to traffic, the peak hour in these residents, if these people are going to be commuters to other homes, they're going to get out the house about 6 or 7, and the town center is not going to have their workers come in until probably about 9 or 10, and then kind of the inverse in the afternoon. So I don't see the traffic really being an issue. Possibly on the holidays. It might be tough to get in and out of there, but that's true of a lot of subdivisions that have retail components near them. So I think it's a good development. I think it's something we should support, and I'll certainly vote for it. I think we've got some work to do with staff to try and make sure that we get the quality development here, since this is essentially the main component of our city, at least from a retail side. So thank you for bringing it to it.
Thank you.
Councilmember?
Yeah, this, this is our last piece of property over there in the town center area. And to take it back in time, that was supposed to be like a little area over there, like a little Astrodome. We went out to Colorado and took a look at it. And it was the Levowitz family were going to build it, but it was a seating capacity of 7,000 people, dirt floor, wood floor, and it was just a replica of what the Astrodome suites and everything else. We ran into two problems. South end of the county didn't want to lose their rodeo to Pearland out of Angleton. The other thing that we had was the school district. They said they needed at least, if we were going to do something, they had to have at least 10,000 seats for graduation, one time a year on there. And so that was where we're at. But 5 years ago, and Darren can probably tell you, but 5 years ago, I did get a call from Levowitz family and said, is there an appetite for that back there now? And I said, well, you'd have to come here and see if the appetite is. We got a new council and other people here, and so it may or may not be. But that's what that piece of property was for there, on that area. And when we looked at it, for that kind of center, it was really big. And then the other part of it was too is with we were limited on going back to the apartment complex. We only got so many that we can have out there. Anytime people see something which looks like that or whatever, that's the first thing they think of as additional apartments going into that area out there, and it's a very big concern. But so I don't know. For me, I would like to see us to have something else in that piece of property. I mean, it is a good piece of property, and it's the only one we got left for the town center out there to help, move that forward to get a lot more traffic than what's getting out there right now.
Councilmember, you had a follow up? See.
I just say, I think maybe there's some uniformity. The benefit of the workshop is we can kind of tell the applicant, hey, we really want it to move forward, or we don't. Mayor, you and I have said this before. We want the nose to be cheap. If we can kind of have some uniformity and maybe provide them some direction of, hey, we're just not going to support this. If there's four of us that say, look, you might, no matter what you do, we're just not going to support it. I hate to see them waste their time trying to perfect a PD that's just going to be a no matter what they do. I said I'd be supportive of it with some minor modifications, but if others want to chime in and say, hey, look, if you go in this direction, we could get to a yes. I'd hate to see them burn a whole lot of time on something that's never really had an opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know that you guys have clear direction. It was a little bit of a mixed bag. I don't know that our staff has a clear direction. I will say, and I don't have a vote unless there's a tie. So I can say whatever I want, and this is what I want here, don't want here, or whatever. It really doesn't matter. It's the rest of this council that's going to ultimately say their piece. I will say this, from an entertainment point of view, what I've heard CBL say for years, numerous things, is this piece of property is detached really from the rest of the actual shopping experience. You have to go through the residential area of the town center in order to get to the shopping. And they have always seen this as a detached piece of property. They have, when the true event center didn't go here. Having said that, I know the city and planning and the PEDC and others are talking about reviving, if you will, an event center of some sort, a sports center, indoor sports complex, or whatever. I will tell you, it is my opinion that if we're going to bite off that type of an investment, I would rather see it in more of a greenfield, so we have the opportunity of it being an anchor and things developing around it and creating more AV. That certainly isn't going to happen here. You do have the opportunity of the sports complex coming here or the sports center coming here, and you have instant shopping that's here. I get that, but the reverse is it'll be a very expensive project, and you already have the AV in the town center that's here. This is providing additional on the ground, boots on the ground shopping experience for the town center. And I think you're getting that the product itself may need to be boosted. And I don't know, from an architectural standpoint, ultimately, if you're going into a PD, we can look at architecturally what this would look like, be a little bit more stringent. I think I even mentioned, like I said, as a developer, I looked at this a few years ago and said a brownstone type of development would be awesome here. It'd be different. And most of that is attached walls. Attached walls can be engineered and built in such a way that you're not necessarily hearing your neighbors. So, but at the same time, I'm not in the marketplace and I'm not doing that. So I want to leave the market to the market. But I don't know that I don't know that we would get consensus. I mean, this is a workshop. I think you're hearing different feedback tonight. So with that, I think it's back into y'all's court, taking the different comments here to move forward. Staff, I don't know, John, if you've got clear feedback. I didn't hear 4 people necessarily say that they would bend over backwards to vote for this, but at the same time, if it came back in a different look, different feel, that might be different. So.
I mean, if I could just add, I'm happy to provide an example to John and that can be shared of a type of townhome development at a similar price point that I would be more comfortable with in this space. And maybe that would be instructive. I think there's kind of a big leap from what this looks like, but maybe not so much that I couldn't join the other side if it was a different product and something else that I was kind of imagining.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think if we can just say, hey, yes, no, or maybe, without any commitments. I mean, if there's 4 no's, then they don't really have to invest in this. I just don't know personally what I would do with the feedback we've given, whether it's worth investing and continue to pay consultants to interact with staff just to come back here for a PD amendment and us say, no, it was a no all along. But I mean, if there's at least 4 of us that say, yes, I'm for it, or if you make some changes, I think I could get there, then they can continue the investment. If not, let's just let them off the hook and let them go find another piece of property. I know I'm a yes, and it sounds like member Orlando's a maybe. So if there's 2 others that say yes or maybe, then at least gives them some confidence that they can move forward.
I think Councilmember Little was a yes on the concept, but not the product.
I'm a yes.
I'm a maybe. Like I said, I try to come up with something that makes me go, wow, this is special. I think that would be the way to go. I don't know how to illustrate that for you, but maybe member Orlando can do a better job of that.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a strong no.
So clear as mud on the direction, which I figured we would get, but it's not an absolute no.
Absolutely.
So I think the ball is back in your court to figure that out. I would recommend getting with staff and others and just pick their brain on what they would like to see here. I do agree. I think there's some townhome developments around that could really be a guide, and I would be interested to see what Councilmember Orlando has on that. Councilmember Kamkar, what would be your thoughts on a yes, no, or maybe?
I'm probably just not going to get there. There's so many so many amendments that have to be changed. The product isn't particularly inspiring, and I think the ultimate issue is the use. There's only so many contiguous acres west of 288 right now, and so I don't see housing as the highest and best use.
Okay, there you go. So with that, I'm going to adjourn this workshop at 8:02. Let's take 5 minutes.